Are you 35, 45, maybe even 55 years old and still feel like a boy in a grown man's body? Well, you know something is missing, but you can't quite name it. Well, here's what it is. You never had a proper rite of passage. In today's episode, I'm sharing a talk I gave on how Western culture lost rites of passage altogether and what that loss has cost men. It's less belonging, less resilience, less vision for the future. I break down what ancient cultures understood that we've forgotten and the 4 core elements they used to turn boys into men with purpose, community, and direction. And why a birthday card and a good job doesn't actually mark a transition. So stick around, because I'll show you the core elements you can use to create your own rite of passage, even if no one ever gave you one, because this is what it takes to stop waiting and step into the man that you are supposed to be. If you have a caterpillar going towards a cocoon, and then it gets inside the cocoon before it becomes a butterfly, what do you think happens if you open up the cocoon halfway through the metamorphosis? Is it a caterpillar with butterfly wings, or is it a butterfly with caterpillar legs? Hands up for A. Who thinks it's A? A caterpillar, we think 1. Caterpillar with butterfly wings. Okay, cool. What about butterfly with caterpillar legs? Who's on that? Got 2, slightly less popular. The people who didn't put up their hands, they're either very shy or they're very smart, because it's neither of these 2 things. I'm sorry. Option C, neither. If you open up a cocoon, inside is just mush, jelly, goo, nothing. The caterpillar actually has to break down completely in order to become a butterfly. So we'll find out why that's important a little later on. My name's Alessandro, as Doug said, and I've gone through a huge change myself in the last year. Gone from literally running a social media company all the way now to doing men's work. And one of the major influences that I've had is working in understanding things about rites of passage. So what I want to do today is tell you what a rite of passage is and why it's the most important thing that you have never had, but you still could. All right, so let's get into it. A rite of passage. What is a rite of passage? So whenever we are all born into the first step of life in a staircase of life called birth. And then as we get older, we go all the way up the steps, all the way until we die, death. Now, each one of these steps is a change in our life, a transition. First step, got something like child. Then we've got teen. Then we've got adult. Then marriage. These are all suggestions, not necessarily truths. Then we've got kids, then maybe a death of a parent. Death is one as well, because that changes us fundamentally. And then we've got becoming an elder, retiring, loads of different ones. Every time we go up a step, this is one of our moments where we completely transform ourselves and become someone new. Every single cell in our body after 7 years is completely different. So why is it not true when we take a step up in one of these transitions? It is actually the case. And in actual fact, when we take these steps up, a rite of passage is often the celebration of that step. So celebration of change. And this is often done, a celebration within a community. Celebration of change, and it's within a community. So what are rites of passages that we actually know about in the past? Ancient tribes used to have it when they had boys and they'd take them out into the woods and they would go and have to kill a lion or something, and they'd come back and symbolically they were men. Other cultures would have, if a woman was pregnant, you'd have a women's circle and you would have all the elders come in and teach the woman about what it was like to be a mother. And they would do that within the community and the woman would feel ready to have the child. These moments, these celebrations of change were the things that literally held the fabric of our society at every single moment of this. So that is what a rite of passage is. It's the celebration of change when a transition happens. But what has happened to us now that we have actually taken rites of passage out of our lives? So what has happened to it? Basically, our lives, we have less sense of belonging. So we don't feel like we belong that much. No belonging. That's a huge one. In the life, at moment, in the moment of society right now that we have the highest levels of depression, we have anxiety, we have loneliness. This is rampant in our society at the moment. Other than this, we have no real sense of vision, where we want to go. Lots of people, at least. No vision for the future. And finally, one thing that's a huge thing missing in our society today is a lack of resilience. No resilience. Where whenever we feel like in the past we'd look at something and go, oh, you know, people used to go to war, but now when the Uber driver doesn't come, we get really angry, right? There's just no sense of resilience. So how would a rite of passage have actually solved all of these things? There are 4 main ingredients to a rite of passage. So I learned all of this from one of my mentors. He's been working for 30 years doing rites of passage in Australia. He's taken 200,000 people through rites of passage to go through this. And the research that he did through many ancient tribal rites of passages was the 4 ingredients for a rite of passage are, number 1, if you're listening to the show, you're already asking the right question. How do I show up better? Maybe things feel harder than they should at home. Maybe you know something needs to shift, but you're just not sure where to start. Here's what I know. You're not lazy, you're not broken, you just never got the manual. Nobody teaches men how to be husbands. Nobody shows you how to navigate the hard conversations, regulate your emotions, or turn your marriage into an actual team. That's why I created Better Husband in 2-Minute Emails. It's 1 email every Saturday morning with 1 tool you can use that week. There's no therapy speak, no blame, just the skills that actually move the needle. 2 minutes, 1 Saturday morning, that's your entry point. Because 3 months of focused work beats 20 years repeating the same damn pattern. Links in the show notes. First email lands this Saturday. Sharing stories. It has been proven that sharing stories within a group, for kids specifically, and this also happens for adults, but the research mainly has been done with kids, that sharing stories for kids where you bring elders, parents, and you bring the peers of the kids, they talk in a circle just about what's going on in their life, that can be more beneficial to a kid's mental well-being than 6 months with a psychologist. Just understanding the stories and hearing stories that other people go through. It's cathartic, it helps you. So stories is a huge part. The second is the part that we kind of understand and we've seen and we know most about rites of passage, is a challenge. So when we have a challenge and when we have elders come through and safely challenge people at whatever level to take them to a new level, we definitely beat this resilience thing. We actually grow them. We grow the skills needed to become the next thing that we want to be. The next is probably my favorite. It's called honoring. In a traditional rite of passage, the person who would be talking or the person who would be in the spotlight, they would genuinely have everyone around the group tell them what they think is amazing about them. Tell them what they think is actually the thing that they can do in the society and they're like the thing that's going to make the society work. And so in this rite of passage, everyone would have a great sense of self. They'd have a great sense of understanding, oh, I could actually be that person for the community, and the community could also help me in becoming that, bringing in belonging and obviously appeasing anxiety, loneliness and depression because it gives purpose. And finally, in a traditional rite of passage, there was vision for the future. Once you have learned stories from the elders, then you have been challenged on that, then you've been honored and told what you're great at and what you could help society with, you together would make a vision for the future that could actually bring it all together and bring you through. So as we can see, all of these, the stories, that helps us understand ourselves, that helps us feel like we belong. Challenge is resilience. Honor, it gives you a place, it makes you feel like you've got self-esteem. And finally, a vision for the future that really helps with one of these big things that's down there. So we don't have rites of passage like this anymore. In fact, rites of passage was something that was everywhere. It was every one of those stages. And it wasn't just being married or, becoming an adult or anything like that. It was also when somebody died. I remember when I lived in Bali, people would seem like they would be celebrating everything and anything on the street. But they actually understood. There's a reason why they're one of the happiest cultures in the world, the Balinese people. It's because they understood that celebration of life, celebration of people at every different step actually helps you feel like you belong in a community, and it actually helps you grow. So how can we bring this into Western culture? Because we've seemed to have lost it. Well, I kind of look at it like, one, we all have to create communities. If you don't feel like you have a community, build a community. Go out there and actually bring people together, because people do need to share stories. That's a huge one. And together as well, you can then challenge each other, do things together, go out and build on your skills with other people. And then of course, you might not be honored by somebody, but go out and honor somebody for what they're good at. If you know somebody's really good at something, go and honor them for that, because it solidifies that in them and they go and do that in the world. And finally, always have a vision for the future and go and get it. So we may not have rites of passage right now in our society, but we can break down these parts, and that's pretty important. Thanks. You can tell me the rules?
10 minutes to ask questions. Alessandro will answer them.
What I find very curious, I'm very curious about communities. I've been working with a lot of communities in the past, in and out, and on and off. So what do you think is the core? Because sometimes what I've seen in communities, it happens a lot of toxic leadership. So what is the core of building like really honoring, longing, sense of belonging?
It's something that I deal with myself. So I started the Mallorca men's group. So we run that here and been doing that for 6 months. And it's something I thought about from the beginning, because I was quite conscious about trying to make something that wasn't going to be toxic in that way. I think the biggest thing is, what is the purpose of the group? So whoever leads it needs to understand that the purpose of the group is the group. It's not themselves. And whoever runs something like that, they need to understand that that's the thing. And I think if you find somebody that understands that, then you've solved most of the problem. Because I think the problem with communities nowadays is, it's like, come join my community, but it's really a lead magnet for a sales pitch that they really want. And they really want you to go down the rabbit hole and just give them money at the end. And people smell that, feel that, and they don't feel like they're actually honored or cared for. And I think that's where the toxicity comes. And if it's not money, then sometimes it's power that they want. And the power can also be just as toxic, I think, when people really want that. So I think it's coming into it and knowing, I know for myself, I literally went, I'm never going to ask money for the Mallorca Men's Club, because I genuinely think that that's my service and that's my community that I get even for myself. So I think it's, if you're going to start something, coming in with it with that intention.
I have a question, and maybe it's just my vision for it, because when I see all the problems that you list, and I'm Colombian, so I have a little bit of vision from both South America and Europe. I feel like there is also a couple of things that are not mentioned in the rite of passage, which I feel are important. One of them is closeness, or the relationship with nature. I have the feeling when I go to Colombia and I feel so close to like the earth, and there's so much green. There is something in my brain that changes, and it gives me a little bit of hope, and I feel more connected to earth than here. And he also feels it, like there is not so much green around. And there is another piece, which is the spirituality, and I think that because we are a very Catholic country and spirituality doesn't mean religious, I have the feeling that also having that thing that it gives you hope, even if it's something you cannot see. It's like you feel like there is something bigger than you that's there with you. It can also help you overcome all those pieces. And I wonder if you have any idea why none of those is included, or if there's maybe something.
They definitely are. In actual fact, I think those are just the 4 elements in terms of like what is done. But often within most rites of passage that were in any society, they would take people away into the wilderness. That's the first step. So nature is it's the actual housing of it. So it's not one of the things you do in there, but it's everything, because everything is already in nature. So that 100%, like I think your intuition on that is spot on, because also you need to get away from the systems that you are in order to have a rite of passage. Because we can't all have a rite of passage here in this room, because we're here. We actually all have to go away somewhere and do this. So that's the first step. And I think the thing about religion is it's very much about culture. And so the man who I've learned off of, he basically teaches these practices, but he actually teaches them so that people can open source, run them in their communities, in their cultures, because it needs to be connected to what you believe and what people believe in their own home and in their own place, so that it can continue in a better way. So it's not about a religion that is one religion for a rite of passage. It's what does that culture believe and how we can bring that in. So for example, if I look at Bali for that, all of their celebrations and things like that, it is all wrapped up in religion, but they're doing all of these things and calling it religion. But I think that's all wrapped up in culture, I believe, the religion side of that.
Yeah, it's not so much the religion, but like I get what you say. Sometimes it's just like looking at your ancestors, thinking about like, you know, what are the rituals that they built, and just being more rooted into this piece. And yeah, like I think nature is super important.
Exactly. I mean, there was one of my favorite ceremonies in Bali. They had Galungan and Kuningan. And Galungan and Kuningan were these 7 days every single year. It's actually every 6.5 months, that you would open up the doorway to the ancestors, and the ancestors would come and be with you for 7 days. You would open up the portal and you would share things. But how it would run, and it was great that I actually got to spend time with some of the locals with it, they would tell the stories of those ancestors. And then some of the men would actually go out and do some fights and things like that. That was very part of their culture, and that was the challenge aspect of it. Then they would literally talk to each other about where they are in life and what they could be doing better. And then they would think about, and I think honoring and vision was sort of mixed in together for them. But I could see it literally was in that, in what they were doing. And they would not even call it a rite of passage. That's just the way that they live.
Do you think that maybe the communities should start at families when you're a kid? Is that your first community? And then you learn how to behave and how to help each other in community, then expand to school, university, and the rest of your life, or whatever you want to do with your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think in traditional like community societies, even families, when you were young, children were raised by the community as well. It wasn't just the parents, and there was actually support for that. And then also, I mean, the other part of this, which is the really crazy thing, is if we go back to that staircase, the elders, the older generation, they were really much a part of that too. And so when the parents were out going to work and they would be doing all the things, the elders would actually tell the stories to the kids and look after the kids. And so there was a lot more support. But in terms of rites of passage, these things definitely start in family, but the family was a lot more connected to the community back then. But that's been, community in general has been stripped away a lot.
Yeah, my teacher, she's 89 years old, and last birthday, I was like, oh, it's my birthday, and she said, this is, you need to do a rite, a ritual for your birthday. You do this, you bring the cake, you do the whole celebration. It was, for me as a Westerner, very different thing to do, because it's like, oh my goodness, my birthday, I should receive gift, I should be doing everything. It was the opposite, and it was very beautiful. So, to go to the point, I think in the West, a way to introduce this maybe is birthdays.
It is, I mean,
Celebrating birthdays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
How we bring this sense of belonging.
I mean, we still have it. You're 100% right. In Western cultures, we have it, but it's more of an achievement or like a badge or like a little honor thing that you put on your mantelpiece rather than something you embody. So exactly like you said there, you should have a ritual or a rite. When you feel like on one of those steps, how you know you're getting to one of those steps is if life starts feeling a little bit annoying and you start feeling like nothing's 100% right anymore and everything feels like, I feel like I'm stuck, I feel like there should be more. That's the moment where you're ready to take that step up. And then you can choose when you have one of those moments. It could be when the birthday happens. It could be, you know, that you're going to go for a retreat somewhere and you're going to write your intention, you're going to write your vision, you're going to go, this is who I was and this is who I'm going to be. But that process has been completely stripped, and I think it's very commoditized now. Now it's buy a birthday card and that's done, and it misses the work. And I see time and time again, people go, like I see it even in the men that we work with, it's like a lot of people start going, I still feel like a boy and I'm 35 years old. And that's the problem with not having a rite of passage, is we have we have kids in grown-up bodies who need to have this growth.
I was in a relation with an Asian girl, and it was amazing to see her every day preparing a meal or do another activity with so much present, like a ceremony. It was an example to see that every day, because we forget that. We forget to put the presence in every action we do, in every rite or the birthday party or the visiting our parents, etc., etc. And this put us in a boost, in a presence, energy that things happen, things moving forward, energy is moving, like in the rite of passage. And I think that the relation with the religion that we have in Europe is a mismatch, something that the people repeals that, but behind that is ceremonies.
Yes.
And
that's where it was. So all of this was very much baked into beliefs and spirituality and everyone's culture for religion. And I think that's why you've got a lot of people saying, if you throw out religion, you might throw out some important things. And I come from a quite atheist point of view, but I see that's the benefit of religion. Is religion had rituals and ceremonies that we actually need as humans. And if we are going to live a life without religion, we have to find those again, because there was some things that were right about community. There were some things that were right about how we dealt with human to human. But as soon as we go into consumerism and as soon as we go into atheism, we've lost community, which is a huge thing, but we've also lost honoring stories, vision, and sharing with family. So we need to find that again somehow, I think, as we go through. That's the episode. That's all I got for you today. I just want you to remember you're not alone in this. Make sure you subscribe to stay connected, of course, and comment your win, because every time a man sees other men winning, they don't feel alone anymore, and I love that. Tools are in the show notes, starting with the Better Husband in 2-minute emails. Let's build this together. I'll see you next week.